higher profit of enterprises. On the labor market issues, we have got the labor demand. Labor-intensive care sector and also labor-intensive hospitality, etc., rely heavily on labor of migrants, right through Europe, US, and richer developing countries. If you go to oil exporting countries, a lot of the care is done by the immigrants from the developing countries, poorer developing countries, and construction industry done by them as well, etc. Now, what is important, the common here, we have got migrants working in the 3Ds sector, three-dimensional sectors. But dirty, dangerous, and demanding, by the way. This is what they do, the migrants, in the main. But where there are skill shortages, we have got the opposite. The migrants are working in the basic trades, by the way. The Australians always advertise for bakers, for carpenters, for pastry chefs, etc. IT, finance, and of course research and development that Nigel already referred to. And here we have got a lot of brain gain. That should be put on the heritage side of the migrants. On the issues at origin, well, obviously there is a brain drain from the origin and brain gain at destination. Even if we did talk about the unskilled migrants, still we should not put down the work that they do, and they are moving from a poor to a richer country, and the poor country is deprived of the labor. Still, it's important to value their labor. Now, having said that, Nigel already mentioned the case of Philippines that provides a large number of workers internationally in the care industry, as well as being seafarers and being picked up by Somalian pirates, unfortunately. When we come to talk about brain drain, studies have shown that up to 10 to 15% of brain drain, skilled migrant labor, out of the country can be managed internally in developing countries, partly through reorganization of work and partly through capacity to train more people. And here, a country like India has more capacity, obviously, than a country like Ghana. But still, there is this possibility. So those liberal-minded and fair-minded people in richer countries who say that, well, we should not take doctors from Ghana, should bear this angle, this aspect of replenishing of the labor. And the other thing is this, that this is obviously a subsidy to the destination country, because training costs are borne by the sending country, and the receiving country benefits from their labor. So there should be some international transfer of resources to compensate the skilled migrants coming from the developing countries, and more importantly, also to contribute to the unskilled migrants who move away from their country of origin, usually when they are 20, 25, whatever, at a very productive year, but the early cost of their life was borne by the country of origin, even if they are unskilled. Unskilled, the construction worker still has had some upbringing costs, and those costs should be part of the international agenda with regard to redistribution of resources. And just as a way of anecdote, when we talk about the training of workers in the developing countries to move out of the country, I'd like to point out to you that doctors in Philippines retrain to become nurses, because nurses can get into the US labor market much easier than doctors. So there is this story as well, that once the country is known for its skills, there is some degree of de-skilling happens in the country as well. When we come to the final issue on the issues at origin to do with remittances. Remittances, as Nigel said, are a huge part of developing countries which send a lot of migrants out. Between 5 to 10% of GDP, these are just very low estimates, that contribute to distribution of income internationally. It's important to maintain this, especially now that we have a downturn in economic activities, and we have seen already declining remittances, partly because of loss of jobs among migrants in rich countries, and partly because of return of migrants home. This brings me to some policy issues. What is about migration policy, which is so controversial? Immigration control versus immigration management. We always hear immigration control. That is on top of the agenda. I'm going to use some EU examples to spell out some policy issues here, which I think would be relevant to other countries as well. EU does not have a migration policy. Simple. EU has an open border movement of people. No labor migration is part of this discussion. People can move around. Now, it is embedded in freedom of movement. That is what the EU has an agenda for. Now, do they have migration control? Yes, because the whole discussion about European Union has been that each country can do what they want with regard to their borders and who they allow in and who they prevent from coming into their countries. So EU has a set of directives, but no migration policy. Now, how does this migration control work in the EU? And this is the interesting thing about the change from borderline to borderland, because EU has a problem as a unit. If you have got freedom of capital, freedom of goods, and freedom of movement, then freedom of labor is a bit tricky, because as we said, labor is part of the people. You can't separate it. Now here, removal of border has been part of the continental Europe, Schengen Agreement, for example. How do they cope with removal of borders then? Then comes the borderland. Borderline is removed and replaced by borderland. Now, control of people takes place through the institutionalized system of education, health, employment, etc. Yesterday, you heard what is happening in Italy, that Italian government, thanks to their partly to the fascist side, partly to the liberal side, I don't know which one is stronger now, they want to introduce various control measures which goes through the bureaucratic system of renting a house. If you rent a house, rent a room to an immigrant who is illegal, you will be fined. If you employ somebody who is an illegal immigrant, you will be fined. So this is imposition of control, not through borderline, but through the borderland. The concept of borderland is bringing control into people's lives, day-to-day life of the country. Another angle of it, search for people's ID. In this country, you have to have your ID with you all the time, right? If you go to the major areas of population, the migrant concentration, you were asked to show your ID far more often than other places, right? And the same, if the train goes from here to Belgium, there are no borders. But on the way back, you have got the border police checking the IDs of everybody, at random, of course. So the system of control has changed, and that was the important